everybody. So this is another painting I'm working on right now. This is oils, and it's about 9 months in. And I'm just doing the little details. This one is, it's a fairy procession with Bigfoot and fairies, unicorns, I don't see the centaur in here. And then these are like little UFOs or little like light bearers and stuff. And you know, I like to keep my stuff, again, mythological, not everything because I'm classically trained. But I am just right now doing all the little details and stuff. For instance, I just did this white around this beige horse, and I like the way that it's turning out. This last little bit gave it just a little bit of like fleshing it out. You know, one of the things that the masters learned is that when you do something, you do the structure behind it first. You know, in other words, you do the like the scaffolding, and you build the muscles around that. So you look at the bone structure first. Same thing with, you know, anything, a house that is built, you know, the same thing. You can't build your house on mud, you know, on a muddy thing. Same thing with art. When the painting, you have to study anatomy. So many artists, they don't study anatomy. And then they're like, but I want to be, you know, I want to do my art and paint. But they don't study anatomy. Like, you have to, it's like a doctor going into surgery and not knowing, you know, the anatomy. It's really important. So right here, I'm just putting in a couple little tiny details with a pen. Pen, it's, I don't do it very often, but one thing that I learned as an artist is that you grab anything, literally anything to make art. Of course, you wanted to keep it archival, you know. And I've done so much pencil and pen and ink and stuff, and then this just like a normal pen puts little details that you can't do even with the finest pen and ink. And I like to do that, not all the time, just occasionally. Just like if this was with like a really matte surface, I would do it with pen. But because it's glossed, I'll do it with pen. And this allows me to get into some of the details. Like this is like the Bigfoot with the princess. So I'll throw in some hair. This now it gets into illustration when you're doing this kind of stuff, you know, with the pens. And I did a illustration, and I did fashion. But again, that's too constricting. That's why I always go towards what would Leonardo da Vinci do? What would Michelangelo do? You know, what would the classical painters do? And because I like to keep everything beautiful, not all the time, not over the top beautiful, not superficial, just aesthetically pleasing. But when you go into mythological themes, you could very easily go into illustration. But what separates the illustration from the painting is that, one, it's like the size is 80 by 90. It's a mural size, number one. Number two, it's got oil, so that puts it into masters. And then three, it has all of these gels and all these different things, and then four, it has acrylic on top. So eventually it becomes fine art. And these freaking UFOs. It's like nobody really knows what these guys are. They're like, what are these? My nephew calls them space bugs. And then they probably, you know, all the UFOology stuff that's going on right now. It's like, God, these guys have probably been here for millions of years. They're just like shining light on these mythological creatures. And this is the caduceus. I put the caduceus a lot in my work. I put a heart on there. Usually I'll do like a different symbol, maybe fleur-de-lis or something, just to reflect the DNA, reflecting royalty. You know, this is like the true royalty, you know, the true lineages that had nothing to do with abuse and stuff like that, you know. Like a unicorn, damn. They probably existed on some world. There's no way to know any of this if it's real or not. But I do believe that mythology has some truth to it. And you know, you look into all the Bigfoot stuff, you're like, yeah, something's going on there. But I'm still waiting for, you know, people are hunting Bigfoot. I'm like, where's my unicorn? Only the purest of heart can see a unicorn. I'm like, okay. So I'm gonna go into this a little bit. I like the way that it's feeling to me. It's not completely done. But like any painting, literally, I swear, you could go for like years. I could go into a painting for literally like 25 years. One painting for 25 years. But like, here's a story that I learned in art school, is that we were like working on these paintings, and the teacher was like, okay, switch. And everyone was like, what do you mean switch? She says, you switch partners, switch your painting. And everyone was like, and then we got all switched and got in front of another person's painting, and she says, now finish it. We're like, what? This is not my painting. And one of the students walked out, and another one was like crying, and I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna finish this other person's painting, and someone's gonna finish my other painting. And towards the end, she says, it's very important that you learn how to release your paintings into the world. Because a lot of artists, they don't know how to release the paintings. They cling to them like they're biologically attached or something. Like you have to learn how to let go. And it was that lesson that was very profound, because I was always highly like protective of my paintings. And then shortly when I learned that, that's when I started selling. Actually, the clinging to your creative work that keeps it from benefiting somebody else. And she taught, once your painting is in the world, it doesn't belong to you. I was like, what? Oh my God, that's terrifying. Once your painting is in the world, it doesn't belong to you. Meaning somebody bought it, or it gets traded, or, you know, so it's living in somebody else's world. It's hanging on somebody else's wall for their whole lifetime. You know, you don't have claim to that. That's theirs. They bought it or somehow acquired it, and you're just like, whoa, I can't hang, man. That's like that girl that walked out. She was like, I'm out of here. So I learned at an early age to let go. This painting here is gonna hang in somebody's hallway, or, you know, above the staircase, or it's going to get rolled up and put into a museum, or maybe it'll get thrown away. Maybe it'll burn in a fire. Nobody knows, but it's this original. I can document it. I can license like the prints of it. I can maintain some control. But ultimately, once I put a thumbprint on it and sign it, it no longer belongs to me. So that was like a very deep lesson. Some of the students didn't get it, and some of the students did. And this was it's the same thing with any creative process. It's the same thing with life. Like your children, when a mother has children, you gotta let your children breathe. So many like helicopter moms. In some ways, you got to protect your children. Of course, I believe in protecting children, but there's some people that like, they squeeze the life out of their relationships. They squeeze their life out of their children. Possession. And they can't let go. In TCM, what I learned is that a lot of that has to do with the intestines. The intestines in the body represent the ability to let go. So the health of the intestines, because everything on the inside is basically everything that's on the outside, right? That's TCM. It's reflective. So letting go is a really important thing. I'm not the best. I'm not the best at it, I'll tell you that. It's hard. But painting your emotions is really healthy. Singing your emotions is really healthy. Music is healthy. Art is healthy. Creativity is really healthy. Like, people that take creativity out of their lives, they're always fucked up. People that are like, they strive so hard to be normal. Oh my God. Nobody is normal. Like, floating in the middle or on the side of a huge freaking universe with all this ancient history that's coming out now. And the universe, this earth is so much older than we know. I grew up in Mexico, so like I saw, you know, I grew up around pyramids, man. Climbing pyramids and understanding that we're, you know, we're ancient. The United States is superficial on that level for sure. Because I mean, if you think about the United States, it's only 200 years old. I mean, as far as our government. And then we had the Indians and different things happening. There's pyramids here, they just haven't been disclosed. But in Mexico, they grew up around all of those pyramids. I grew up around that. So I would go in and out of like tunnel systems and stuff in Mexico when I was a kid. That's like what I was doing when I was growing up. And collecting all of these artifacts before all of the museums put a stop to that. And still to this day, someone will make their house and then they'll bump into like this ancient wall built by like the Aztecs. That happens all the time. So you learn that life, that, oh man, you learn that it's a lot more ancient than you think. See, people can't put like their wool over their eyes, especially like historians. And all that stuff's coming out now, and all the historians are like, but I learned that, the same thing in the medical industry. Like all these stuff's coming out, and they're like, but I learned. They're invested in the wrong, too invested. That's why they don't change. They don't take new information in, because they don't want to be wrong. But that's not what, you know, that would definitely not be the Leonardo da Vinci method, self-educo, because when you learn how to learn, you learn how to be wrong. That's the number one thing. So you're teachable. And that requires a certain amount of humility, and it requires a certain amount of humility and curiosity. But you have to want to learn. Some people don't want to learn. The great American saying, dudeology is, I know. Hey, you gotta do this. I know already. I know. Like, you really, do you know? You probably don't know. So stop, like, take that out of your vocabulary, dude. Like, it's horrible. I know. I should. It's just, you don't know. And it comes from a certain type of cultural insecurity. You think that if you don't know something, you're going to be vulnerable. But actually, it's the other way around. If you don't know something and you go, I don't know anything about that, can you teach me? Or can I hear? You know, my dad says, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You know, we don't have 2 mouths and 1 ear. And so it's a type of narcissism, sure, to think that you know everything. But I learned also in my in some of the money programs I was in, business programs, is that will actually prevent you. Overconfidence is like the killer. That's why narcissists lose in the end, because they were overconfident with their I know. And the empaths win, man, in the end, because they study, they're quiet, they learn, they know, they can know, they know when somebody is a narcissist. The narcissist is to what's the word? It's too vulnerable, outwardly vulnerable. And our society helps them to flourish. But that, once you study and learn empathy, then you know that the empaths they're studying you even more than the psychopath or the narcissist. That's one thing I learned. And that Sophia stage is the empath has enough and gleans its power because they've been studying society. So a lot of artists are empaths. They get screwed over because they don't study. They don't know that people are like, they want their creativity. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that are creative. And a lot of people that make money are actually creative. You know? It took a type of creativity to do that. To do what they do. But the empath always wins in the end. That's what they don't tell you. Jung knew that. That's why he studied empaths. Because they're just learning their whole life. I studied psychology for a long time, then I won't get into the details now, but I will as I go on doing all of these different looks and paintings and stuff. I've been wanting to do these like 9-month paintings for a long time, but because I was selling so fast, I was like, oh man, just freaking, I would like put like a squiggle on canvas. People would be like, I want it. I was like, God, let me freaking paint, man. It's like, I could never finish anything. And it's a good thing, I guess, you know, because you're successful, but it's also like, people just don't let you finish your creative. When I had my gallery in Mexico, I swear, I sold so many, like, I sold like 400 paintings. And I'm like, but I'm just working on this. And they come in and they're like, I want it. I'm like, well, I'm not done. They're like, but I'm leaving for my trip. Or, you know, I'll get it. I don't care if it's done. I like it the way it is. So I just like, sell it. And so there's a lot of sketches out there of mine. I was like, those are sketches. People think that that's like, oh, that's a sketch. Eventually, I just had to really declare that that's a sketch. They've never seen the finished work because it's hard to. one, because I needed the money. I was like, well, I need to pay rent, man. So if you want the sketch, here's the sketch. But art is just like a work in progress. Like I said, this I could flesh out for another, couple years. But then why? Because so it'll have the perfect everything, and then it'll lose that genius. So you have to keep some, like I said in my prior vlogs, you have to keep some, or I keep some flaws. In everything I do. Even like my music and my recordings. If I didn't do it perfect, or I didn't, I would just keep it. And we're like, I like the more expressive thing. So if I did do this for another 9 months, I'd probably add some colors. And this is very like sepia and old masters kind of feel. But if you see, there's like some pinks right there, some blues. I do tiny bits of color. My grandma used Prussian blue a lot, and I became like a Prussian blue like advocate. And I loved it for some of my earlier stuff has only Prussian blue backgrounds. I loved it. But for the sake of keeping it classical, I moved into umber sepia. And sepia is more versatile. When you do a Prussian blue, you commit to that really moody, dark blue. It's a lot of blue. So I like to keep the sepia because then I can, if I want to, I can add the colors later. And I've done that with watercolors. So on top of the oil and then acrylic, and then I'll move into watercolor, because I find that doing things with a little bit more subtlety is better for me. It's just so that is the painting of the day. I don't know what I'm going to call this. Bigfoot procession, maybe. Sasquatch procession. This Sasquatch over here is towering over the princess. But they're living in harmony. And I wonder, that's why I love The Lord of the Rings. I wonder if there was ever a time where these Nephilim and these fairies and these aliens and these princesses and this magical realm and these unicorns and centaurs, I wonder if it ever was in some sort of mythological dream state world, But one of the things that I don't like about all the Netflix movies and all of the art that people do and like the cinema and stuff, is just like, it's so dark. And like I said in my prior vlog, it's like, there's so much darkness and fear. Like, why add to that? It's ridiculous. You know, I don't think we need more darkness in the world. And that's another reason why I sing about love and the intricacies of relationships. Because, you know, the fear around love. Okay, you guys, that's the vlog for the day. Thanks. Bye.